ballsy midfielder. I said the hell with it. I said pay up for that because I think there's a guy that absolutely is a game changer, Schneiderlin. So I put $30 million there, and then for a winger, $12.5 million. So that puts collective need for perfect wish list at about 65 million quid. And as I said, you've got absolute no-brainer sales of 20.5 million. You've got collective 11 worth 71.5. And let me share with you who I would sell. I'm going to play If You Were Levy. If I was Levy, I'd be selling Lennon for $7.5 million. I'd be selling Andros Townsend for $8 million. I would try to sell Dembele for 11, Paulinho for 10, Soldado for 7.5, and I tell a lie. I'm full of shit. Sorry. Let me do this again. Lennon for 7.5, Adebayor for 2, Capuy for 6.5.
You drank all my beer. That's what you're doing.
Holtby for 4, Dembele for 11, Paulinho for 10, Soldado for 7.5, Tommy Carroll for 3.5, and Yunus Kabul for 4.5. And so I have total transfer value of those players, and admittedly to sell 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players in a window is pretty ridiculously ambitious. But there's a potential transfer value there of about $56.5 million. So the whole point I'm trying to make through all of this is get Schneiderlin. Get Schneiderlin and fill in, because so we talked about WhoScored.com rankings, and I didn't know this when I was talking about this rankings and how I was mentioning last week that we only have 2 that are ranked 7 or higher. Schneiderlin is the second highest rated midfielder that WhoScored rates on the Premier League. I was blown away by that. But it speaks to how terrific he is. And boy, you just nailed it as far as I'm concerned, Kenny. Seeing him and Bentaleb in the same midfield really excites me. And we joked around with the 4-1-4-1. But there's lots of flexibility that you can have in lineups with a guy like Schneiderlin. He is the absolute must-have player. So look, I won't labor this any more than I already have. But I encourage people to say, come up with their first priorities, like the list of players that they know without question, without any debate, should be sold. Figure out who's in your group of debatable players that you'd like to sell. Go through the value, identify what your needs are, and shoot us messages. We'll find a way to post this. And by the way, so with all the players that I would like to sell in a perfect world, we would be saving in wages about £27 million a year in wages. So I
am going to throw a spanner in the works.
I love it.
And say you're having a bit of a bubble with the valuations on some of those players.
I
think you're only going to get 6 for Lennon, not 7.5.
Well, and I'm not going to pick on each one that you mentioned, but I'm going to harken back to how we have continually been ridiculed for selling Elvis and buying the Beatles. It keeps cropping up, and the money we paid for those, which was daft money because we had it, which really flies in the face of what Levy does when it comes to business with this club. But I honestly think, knowing how some of these will be sold on because they have been flops, those valuations are probably a bit lofty, and I don't think we'll get quite those. I think, for Capu, what did you say for him? 6.5?
Capu 6.5, yeah.
I'll be...
If we get 4 for him, I'd be astonished.
No, I was going to say 5. If we got 5 for him, that would be a lot. I don't think we'll get... Well, I don't think we'll get the money for Soldado because of his age, and he's been with us 2 years now, and he was obviously 2 years younger. 26? He's now 28 or 29, and he's nudging the wrong side of, not the wrong side of 30, but he's nudging 30. And for a striker, your valuation drops when you get to that. And Adebayor at 2 mil, that's about right. And I know Chelsea are banging on that possibility. And he's a mercenary. Why wouldn't he go to another London club? So he has no loyalties. And I'm sorry, he's not up there on the popularity list with a lot of Spurs fans. So.
Well, when you think of midfielders, Simon, you have to think about think of players like Tom Huddleston, and think of players like who's the other midfielder we sold the whole
Livermore.
Livermore.
Yeah, Livermore. We sold Livermore for £5.5 million. So I understand. I don't disagree with you. I certainly believe of all of the there's two players that really do. There's three players for that matter that really bother me because we get operating leverage out of selling them: Dembele, Paulinho, and Soldado. And between the three, I've got £28.5 million between the three. And
not going to happen.
Well, I don't disagree with you, but Levy got $5.5 million, right, for Jake.
Youth.
I don't disagree with you. If there's anybody that can, but my whole point is this: if you focus on those three players and really market them well, right, there's your Morgan Schneiderlin. And then the rest of it is all. I mean, Lennon. For example, I'm probably a little bit light on Tommy Carroll. Maybe I'm a little heavy on Aaron Lennon. I don't think I'm terribly far off on Capuy at £6.5 million for a very young, to your point, midfielder. But look, you know what? You may very well be right. And here's the joy of this entire exercise. It just goes to show you that even with the hardest of work, the most noble of intentions, it is such an imperfect science. And we bitch and moan endlessly about leadership and aspirations. And we have 11 players that in a perfect world we'd like to sell. And we've got, a 2-month window to try and do it.
Yeah.
This isn't going to be easy. The one thing that really stuck out to me, and pardon my language, boy, when we misspent $100 million, I don't think we had any sense of what a monumental fuck up this was to try and clean up.
Which is shocking that Baldini is still here, because on that alone, it is shocking.
It is.
So one player we haven't mentioned, and the assumption has to be made that we're still sniffing after him, and that's Jay Rodriguez.
Yeah.
But for all the Southampton players, hold on. For all the Southampton players that sodded off when Pochettino left, we didn't get any, but we had been linked with most heavily with Schneiderlin and Rodriguez. Mm-hmm. And once they had succumbed to the Liverpool money, it was obvious they weren't going to let anyone else go. But those two were the two we clearly wanted. Yeah, I think we wanted Lovrenz and we did want Lallana. We wanted half the bloody team if Pochettino had his way. We ended up with none, but we're still linked with those two. Obviously, Schneiderlin more heavily than Rodriguez because he's been out injured all season, just returned to training. Yeah. I mean, it's so bloody long ago since I saw him play that I don't even know if I rate him anymore. But is there any merit to us pursuing him, and where would he fit in with the squad?
Well, I say no just by way of personal preference of there's too many good players that haven't blown out an ACL. He doesn't really fit a glaring need anyway. If we want, what's his natural position? He's really a winger that sort of moonlights forward, right? And I think the one thing that we need in that position is actually speed, right? We're not, I don't view him terribly differently than a Nasser Chadley, and we've had our fair share of frustrations here.
Well, and that's exactly right. He's no better than the options we currently have.
Maybe
Morales. That's another one.
He is, but he's coming off an injury, and you don't know. And I've got to spend money on a guy that I don't know how good he's going to be after an injury. And I can't think of too many people that have blinders of careers post an ACL reconstruction. Ruud van Nistelrooy is probably the only one that I can really think of. Theo Walcott comes to mind, but it's not like he's
tearing anything up, yeah.
Yeah, so, but I tell you what does intrigue me about the Southampton situation. They did express serious interest, I believe, for Andros Townsend. And, if you look at what I've put at Townsend, he's not... See, there's interchangeable parts. Look, if you think you can get $10 million for Townsend, and I don't think he's worth $10 million, I have him rated at 8, and Southampton want him really badly, and that's the only way that I can get Schneiderlin, you do that. Think you kill two birds with one stone when you're able to sell a play or use
you can bring Alex Pritchard in to replace Townsend. Theoretically, you can for that roster spot. I'm not saying in the position, but theoretically for that roster spot, Pritchard deserves a first team chance. He really does. He just got voted Brentford's Player of the Year.
Well, I have a sneaky feeling that he's going to be every bit as exciting as Eriksson. We've joked about the 4-1-4-1. but I really have to wonder whether that actually is not a bad idea to take, especially if you've got Pritchard. You go get a speedy winger. If you can go find a speedy winger, I say the hell with it. Sell both Lennon and Townsend.
I think we said it last week. Pritch will stay with the team. I think Ali will get loaned out probably to a good championship team. Yeah, who's to say with MK Dons getting promoted to the championship, they don't loan him back to MK Dons?
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if that happened.
And that might just be a 6-month thing.
That would probably be very wise. But again, he's still young. He's 18. Let's say he's 19 by the time the January transfer window rolls around. And that will probably be okay to assimilate him in based on where we are with whatever competitions we're in. It's a squad player, get him some minutes to get him prepared for the following season. That would be probably good exposure. But yeah, I think Pritch will definitely be with the squad and definitely see some playing time. He's just been outstanding for Brentford. I mean, he scored another goal on the weekend with a 30-yard screamer. Well done to Brentford for squeaking in on the last day of the season into the playoffs.
And he scored in that game, didn't he?
Yeah. He had a 30-yard free kick. I mean, the guy is just... He's doing what, unfortunately, Eriksson is not doing right now. And granted, it's in a lower division. I get that. Put it into perspective. But, if he can get his day out at Wembley, if they can overcome Middlesbrough... I'm still, as much as I've got a soft spot for Brentford, as Paul O'Keefe and I were bantering yesterday about that, both having lived in that area, I think it's Norwich's to lose. Granted, they're third, so you think they're the favourites, but they've got to overcome 2 East Anglia derbies before they have their day at Wembley, and. But I think Norwich have the depth. They're the team on the rebound from relegation last year, and that they're the ones most likely to clinch that third spot. But a big shout out to Bournemouth for clinching not just promotion, but they actually won the title of the championship. Well done to them.
Dodgy Russian owner, another dodgy Russian owner.
Oh, whatever.
This guy, unlike Abramowitz, doesn't like the limelight at all. If you go
clearly,
he doesn't. There's not a lot about him, like how he made his money. And
I can guarantee you, half our listeners didn't even know there was a Russian chairman.
Yeah,
that would be me included.
I didn't either.
Hey, so very quickly, let me just...
Sam, you are an anorak. You really are, mate.
I do love numbers, and I do love... I like the art of the deal, and it just goes to show, hey, look, before you rant and rave and talk about how terrible our management is and this, that, and the other, understand this is not an easy business from the get-go. We have hamstrung ourselves by way of the mistakes that we made when we sold Bale. And I just want to thank a couple people real quick. I want to thank at JB2Coys for sharing sort of... He talked about Alderweireld, Schneiderlin, talked about Pritchard, and would like to see Pastore here. Absolutely, Davey, Spurs Poet, which, by the way, has he had his kid?
No, not that I know of.
Like a week...
a week late, yeah.
He's just a gem of a human being. He put this gigantic post on Facebook that answered all the questions that we posed, and much of his thinking is very much in line with ours, with some subtle nuances. But if you don't follow him on Twitter, he's at the Spurs Poet. Go find him on Facebook. He is just an incredible Spurs supporter and an even greater human being, and he was very, very kind to just write this just gigantic response. So very quickly again, my players to sell: Lennon, Addy, Capui, Holtby, Dembele, Paulinho, Soldado, Tommy Carroll, and Yunus Kabul. 56.5 million. We would result in a 22.4 million loss in selling those players, and we would be saving just under 27 million roughly in wages.
I don't know if I ever sold that many players playing FIFA.
Holy crap. And so the one question I'll just leave everybody with is, how many players do you think we'll be able to sell? Because what we buy, without question, will be a direct function of what we sell. And I am done.
Last week on the show, we talked about Tottenham coming over in the summer to play the MLS All-Stars in Denver. And I kind of threw out just a tongue-in-cheek comment, but I've always heard it was true, that Denver is the microbrew capital of the world. The San Diego...
Can I stop you there, mate?
Yeah.
Microbrew is so 90s. It's craft brewery.
Whatever.
It's just, you know,
Craft
being
brewery
the beer
capital
nerd,
of the United
being
States.
the beer nerd.
Beer nerds.